Shalom. We will say a few divrei Torah for the Parashat that's coming. Parashat Vayishlach. So, I'm quoting from the first verse, Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim El Esav Achiv. Yaakov is preparing himself to meet finally after so many years, after he was given the order by his mother, Rivka, to leave, to avoid the possibility of any kind of danger from his brother Esav. As we know, Esav has sworn that after the death of his father, he shall murder his brother Yaakov. Why? Because Yaakov has taken over the Bechorah and the Beracha. He took the blessing of his father from Esav, as we know in last week's parasha. And he took also, obviously, he sold to Esav himself, who agreed to that, the birthright. The right of the birthright that makes Yaakov the leader, not Esav. Now Esav did not forget that when he knew that he lost the blessing of his father, which is so fundamental to the nation of Israel in the future. So Esav swore that when the occasion will present itself, he shall kill his brother Esav, his brother Yaakov. And that's the reason why Rivka, who was like a prophetess, knew about it, and she told Yaakov, leave, go out from Beersheba, from the land of Israel, and you should go now to Haran, where you will meet Lavan. And even his father, Yitzchak, after he understood that, of course, the right belongs to Yaakov, not to Esav, but this is already another discussion, I don't want to go too much into it, but he also agreed that he should leave, but now because of one reason. The primary reason why Yitzchak agreed to send Yaakov is so he can find a good wife for him, not from the daughters or the girls of Canaan, which were an abomination in the eyes of Yitzchak, but rather from his own family, Lavan and Betuel. Maybe he can find, and thank God he found the most beautiful wife in Rivka. All right? And then Yaakov left for a long time, and he left first to the yeshiva Shem Va'ever for 14 years. And then another 21 years in the house of Lavan, working for 7 years for Leah, who became his wife, and then another 7 years so that he can marry also Rachel, the sister of Leah, and then he added another 7 years to Lavan as a gift, or whatever arrangement was between them. So calculate now how many years he was not by his parents. And now he's about to meet Esav. He heard, he had some kind of information that Esav is arriving. He's arriving with the whole army with him. The Torah says 400 people. Yaakov knows about the promise that Esav will kill him. So he prepared himself. First, he prepared himself through the prayer that he prayed to God, and he said, Hatzileni na miyad achim yad Esav. Oh Lord, save me from my brother, from Esav. Of course, it sounds redundant. From my brother, from Esav. The Torah usually does not repeat itself in such a way. I mean, it's either his brother or the name Esav. Choose one of them. Why do you have to say, please save me from... We shall discuss this later. Why did he say that? But in the meantime, the Torah tells us that before the encounter between him and Esav, Yaakov was afraid. It says in the Torah, Vayira Yaakov me'od. He was very much afraid. Vayetzer lo. Not only he was afraid, but he was sorry. What's going on? We have to understand. Number one, why was he afraid? I mean, God himself promised him he will protect him. Ushmarticha bechol asher telech. That's what God said to him. Wherever you go, I shall be with you. I shall guard you. And besides that, it says in the Torah that he sent messengers to Esav, telling him, here I am Yaakov, coming towards to see you, to meet you. But remember, Im Lavan Garti. Literally it means I lived with Lavan for so many years. So what? But the word Garti in Hebrew means I dwelt with him. But the word Garti can be reversed in such a way that you could see the same letters as Taryag. What is Taryag? It's a numerical value of 613. 613 commandments. Our sages say, as it says in the Talmud in Masechet Sanhedrin, Im Lavan Garti, it says also in Masechet Berachot, that in fact Yaakov said, I lived with Lavan and I kept 613 commandments. Which means, and Rashi says that I did not learn from his bad ways, from Lavan's bad ways. Which means I have the promise, the protection of the commandments of the Lord, which I kept very well, and therefore, apparently, he has no reason to fear Esav. Number one, he has the promise of God. Number two, he has the protection of the mitzvot, of the commandments that he observed, knowing that Esav hardly observed anything, because he became an evil man, a bad man. Well, and we know, by the way, it says so in Bamidbar Rabbah, in the Midrash, it says, Kach amar lahem HaKadosh Baruch Hu Israel. Thus has the Lord, blessed be he said to the people of Israel, Kol zman she'atem medubakim b'mitzvot. As long as you are hanging or attached to the mitzvot, to the observance of the commandments, yesh lachem chaim. I promise you, your life will be always saved. As it says in the Torah, "Ve'atem advekim b'Adonai Elohechem hayim kulechem hayom." You stick to God, you stay alive. So, with this kind of protection that Yaakov has, he has no reason to fear Esav, and that's why we have to explain that. And we know that according to our sages, according to Resh Lakish in the Talmud in Masechet Makot, page 24, it says there that that according to the opinion of Resh Lakish is that if you dare to miss even one commandment, you are in danger. But nevertheless, our sages said in the same Gemara that I quoted before, there is a story of Rabban Gamliel, the president of the Jewish people at the time. He used a certain verse from the book of Psalms, number 15, yes, and in that psalm there is a description of a man who has to conduct himself with honesty, with many, many good things. And it says at the end, the conclusive verse says, Ose ele lo imot leolam. If one pays attention to all his conduct, not to gossip, not to say any evil talk about his fellow man, and to be honest in his business and so forth. You could check in the Psalm number 15, and it has all the commandments that we have to tell us about the good conduct. So it says, anyone who conducts himself according to this will never fall, will never die. Okay? So Rabban Gamliel, so it says, anyone who does those things, which means all the commandments, shall never fall. So the Talmud says in Masechet Makot on page 24 that when this was known by Rabban Gamliel, when he looked upon this verse, he started to cry. He said, you mean to tell me that only if you observe all the commandments, then you are safe, but if there is only one, he will not be safe, he will have to fall? So they answered him, no, Rabban Gamliel, don't worry. He does not say in the verse, Kol Ose'ele, anyone who observes all of them. Ose'ele, which means even one of them, it's enough to give you the power of life, which means you will be somehow safe. So we understand that the power of the observance of the mitzvot is, there's no question about it, that it has tremendous protection, since we have at least a story from the Talmud that tells us that even one single mitzvah that is done properly has the power and the potential to give you the protection for your life. So the question remains, how come Yaakov was afraid? And our sages said in Masechet Berachot on page 4, it says, Shema yigromachet, which means Yaakov Avinu was afraid that maybe he has some kind of sin, which he doesn't know. Shema means perhaps I have some kind of sin. And because of that, he is afraid from Esav. We have to understand that. You are afraid, okay, let's say you sinned one sin. But remember who's Esav. How can he stand in front of you? So you have no reason to be really afraid, especially after what we have explained. I thought, our sages say that he was afraid, that he is under the obligation to defend himself and therefore to even kill his brother. Yaakov doesn't want to kill anybody. The Jewish people never wanted to kill anybody. Of course, to defend yourself, you have to kill. But to just go and kill, the Jewish people is not that. So Yaakov was exactly that. And our sages said that the Jewish people imitates Yaakov Avinu in many ways. So why was he afraid then? He was afraid of a sin, one sin. And so Rashi says, he brings the words of our sages, he was afraid to kill, to be obligated to kill. And Vayetzer lo, why was he sorry? That perhaps Esav will overcome Yaakov, and even he will succeed to practically kill Yaakov, God forbid. So he was afraid. But we have to explain that further. With your permission, I will say the following. Yaakov knew that even though he did fulfill all the commandments, but we already mentioned the fact that the one commandment that is done properly, with all the embellishments and everything that is needed having to do with that kind of observance, so he was scared that maybe he is not that kind of person. Why? Because even though he was told by his own mother and father to leave, nevertheless he left for a long time. All this time his parents remained without him. So you understand, they were sad because their beloved son was not with them. And he was afraid of that maybe his observance of the respect of his father and mother was not the best. Even though in the beginning he did it well, but for many years, as we have said, he did not. Whereas Esav was a champion in the mitzvah of honoring his parents. Our sages said many things about Esav. That Esav, even a great rabbi who was known as a phenomenon as a person who was a great man in the way he honored his parents. I think it was Rabbi Ishmael, the Talmud says. Nevertheless, he himself knew that no matter how much he honored his parents, he did not honor it to the extent of the way Esav used to honor his parents. Because Rabbi Ishmael says, even me, who has given them proper honor, nevertheless, when I went to meet my father, I did not pay attention to the way I am dressed. But Esav, before he went to see his father, he dressed royal vestments upon him. He did not see his father just like that. And Yaakov knew that. He knew that Esav did one mitzvah, the mitzvah of honoring one's parents. It is a great mitzvah, no question about it. But he did it in perfection, the utter perfection. Whereas Yaakov regarded himself as a person who's lacking the perfection of this commandment. That's why he was afraid. And that's the point. Especially that I did mention before that according to Rish Lakish, that even one, if you miss one single commandment, it's possible that there is going to be a judgment in Gehinnom, in hell. So which means it's punishable. So if it is punishable, so Yaakov was afraid. That's why, by the way, King Solomon said in the book of Proverbs, chapter 10, Hacham Levi kach mitzvot. An intelligent and a wise person should always observe the commandments. A person who does not observe the commandments is stupid, because he doesn't know that he is in danger. He doesn't realize, because the power of the mitzvot, the observance of the commandments, is a power of great protection, the potential of tremendous protection. And I believe in that. What was there that protected the Jewish people throughout all the generations? I mean, we were not protected to the extent of not being harmed. We were harmed perhaps to the maximum, but not entirely eradicated. We were not annihilated. We are alive today. Am Israel Chai. The Jewish people is alive. How? Because part of the Jewish people has kept the mitzvot properly. And even if it's not properly by some people, but nevertheless, there are many who did it well. As it says in the book of Pirkei Avot, at its introduction, Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek l'olam haba shneimar ve'amech kulam tzadikim. Your nation, all of them are righteous. Well, how can you say that? We know that perhaps the majority of the Jewish people today is not that religious, but we know being Jewish is already, and being circumcised, they have the potential to be righteous. That's to the maximum that we can say about this. So now we explained that Yaakov Avinu was afraid because of what we explained. Nevertheless, what we still have to explain is why it says Vayira Yaakov, he was afraid, Vayetzer lo, and he felt sorry. Sorry for what? The Malbim explains that he had anxiety somehow, that he realized that he is afraid. He realized that he is afraid. I said, I feel fear. If I feel fear, that means I do have some kind of sin. To explain that, I have to bring a certain Talmudic story from Masechet Brachot, where it says that there was a rabbi walking together, maybe in the wilderness, with his own pupil. And then the rabbi realized that the pupil walking behind him was all the time with hesitation. So he turned to him, he said, "What's the matter? Are you afraid?" So the pupil said, "Yes, I am worried, because who knows what's coming in this place, which is very, very, it's like a wilderness." So the rabbi said, "You're afraid? that means you must have sins. You are a sinner. That's why you are afraid. A person who does not sin is not afraid of anything. From this we understand that there could be a righteous man could be afraid that maybe he has committed some kind of sin, and that's the reason why he is afraid. That's it's a real possibility. So that's why it says, Vayera Yaakov meod vayetzer lo. He was afraid from Esav, but the fact that he was afraid also caused him anxiety. I am afraid. That means I have committed some kind of sin. So as we have explained, it's possible that he condemned himself that he was not with his parents for so many years. He did not give them, he did not apply upon them the observance of honoring one's parents. Nevertheless, the question remains. Yaakov has 613 observances, commandments that he kept. And Esav had only one, honoring one's parents. By the way, this shows us that to honor one's parents is of the utmost importance, no question about it. Mitzvah, this kind of mitzvah, if it is done properly, with perfection, it has great power of protection, no question about it. Nevertheless, when you have 613 commandments, there is no reason to be afraid. But Yaakov knew the power of one mitzvah when it is done with perfection. That's the problem. Yes, he did observe 630, but who knows? Maybe he's considered that some of those, especially the mitzvah, the observance of the commandment of honoring one's parents, was not kept properly by him. That's why he was really afraid, because he understood that the mitzvah has the potential of protection. But there is another reason why Yaakov was afraid, and he was also full of anxiety. Remember, when he prayed, before he met Esav, he prayed to the Almighty. And he said to him, Hatzileni na miyad achi miyad Esav. Save me, O Lord, from my brother, from Esav. It sounds redundant, we said already. Right? I mean, it's almost a repetition. You say, my brother, my Esav. We know that Esav is your brother. You don't have to say, my brother, my also Esav. So the Rav of Brisk, the Brisker Rav, Rabbi Yoshe Ber, he explained that the reason why he said my brother and Esav, because Yaakov was afraid from two things. Number one, he was afraid that there should be some kind of war between him and his brother, and he might be killed, as we said before in the beginning. But if he is killed, it's only the danger of the body. I mean, he's afraid for his body. But he was also full of anxiety. Who knows? Maybe Esav will hand his hand towards him for peace. After so many years, it's also natural that the brother, no matter how evil he was, but he did not see his brother for so many years. Maybe now his heart has changed. And then he will become again his brother. Yaakov doesn't want to be the brother of Esav. He's his brother by nature, biologically. But he doesn't want to be his brother in a way that they are together. To be together with Esav was so dramatically terrible for Yaakov that his anxiety was even superseded also his fear. And that's why he said, please God, save me from the brotherhood with Esav, and also from my brother, and also from Esav. Two big dangers. The danger of dying, I mean his body will die, and the danger of having to be in peace with Esav. It means to be together. I mean, he wants also peace with Esav, but stay away from me. A tzaddik, a righteous man, is not going to become, he could be friendly, but not together. To be all the time brothers with somebody who does not observe the commandments is terribly dangerous for the soul. Yaakov was worried about the soul much more than his own body. And that's why when he prayed, he said that Silenina, protect me, save me from my brother, from being a brother to him, just in case he wants peace with me, and of course from Esav, just in case he will fight me to death. And now we understand why he used those two terms, very important. At the end, what do we know from the whole story? The conclusion is that the Parashat tells us, even though Esav was coming with 400 people as though he's going to fight the camp of Yaakov, nevertheless, when he saw from far, he saw Yaakov, it says, Vayarotz Esav likrato, vaychabbekehu, vaynashekehu, vayivku. And he ran towards Yaakov, and both of them, they hugged each other, and they were crying. That means there is peace, unbelievable. After so many years, in which it was definitely known that Esav hates Yaakov, he wants to kill him. But after so many years, our sages explain, and it's brought in Rashi, at that minute, he felt that there is still affection for his brother. So there was peace, a temporary peace. By the way, our sages said that in the future, when the Mashiach will come, the nations of Esav, which means Christianity, Muslim, Islam, everything, they will come back again to love the Jewish people. And they will believe only in one single God, Hashem Echad, as he says, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. He is only one. There's no other forces. And that will be at the end of time. But in the meantime, of course, there is a very big split between the Jewish people and the rest of the world. I mean, we have suffered enough, and yet we survived. The Jewish people survived. We already mentioned that it's because of the mitzvot that we kept. So imagine the danger in which a person is, a Jew, when he does not fulfill the mitzvot of the Torah. So anyway, the conclusion was, after they hugged each other and everything, and now they cry. And Yaakov convinced Esav to receive the gifts that he prepared for him. In the beginning, Esav didn't want to receive anything, but he said he kept on being, please receive from me the big, a tremendous fortune that he gave to Esav. And now Esav is so full of love for Yaakov that he says to him, Vayomer nis'a v'nelecha, let us travel together and go back home together. Oh, Yaakov doesn't want that. So what did he say to him? I have a problem, Esav, my brother. You have to understand, my children are still small children, and the road will be too much for them, and I have so much, I carry with me so many, everything with me, my children, my wives, and all the camp that I carry with me. I might be very slow for you. So you advance, you go ahead. I shall come to see you one of these days. When we go to the land of Seir, I will see you there. But right now, let's split. And that's how Yaakov escaped the possibility of being together with Esav even though there was peace for a while. So he doesn't want this kind of closeness. To be close to Esav is a danger. First, he's afraid for his soul to be affected, and that's the point. And that's the reason why it says at the end, the conclusive verse of all this, it says, Vayavo Yaakov Shalem. And Yaakov came back home when he was completely perfect, completely completed, Shalem. Our sages explained, Shalem begufo, thank God, he was all entirely safe, with his body safe, and his money, and also with his Torah. So his Torah was not affected because he did not stay with Esav. So automatically now Yaakov is fine. After that, of course, we know that after the years have passed, and the generations have passed, and we know everything that affected Yaakov Avinu, affected the Jewish people, all that has trespassed the life of Yaakov has happened also to the Jewish people. But at the end there, we hope and pray that peace will reign in the world when Hashem will finally decide to bring us the Redeemer and to build Bet HaMikdash, and then all the nations will again feel great affection and love for Am Israel, for the nation of Israel. Amen. Shabbat Shalom.